That's right. In this limited time event on the channel where I talk about Bleach for an entire month, I am using one of the 4 videos to discuss Kon. Why the hell am I doing this? Well, to be honest, I think Kon is one of the most fascinating characters to have ever been introduced into a manga, period. This is not to say he's a good character, by any means. However, he is incredibly fascinating. He's a character whose existence is never justified at any point in the story, and his contributions to the plot are legitimately non-existent. They don't exist, ever. So I just want to talk through Kon as a character and get to the bottom of why is this thing even in the manga to begin with. Kon is obviously introduced extremely early into the story during the Substitute Soul Reaper arc, where the series has a much more slice-of-life comedic balance with the shonen battle content. It's a different vibe for the series that, you know, sets the tone for the entire manga to come, but also stands kind of outside the box of what it sets up for the rest of the series. And when we first see him, I think we are led to believe that this will be some kind of important character. He's meant to be a kind of bridge to get Ichigo's powers and, I mean, life, I guess, to the next level, to the next stage of the story. It's overcoming a problem that he's been having by not knowing what to do with the body he leaves behind when he turns into a Soul Reaper. In comes Kon, the guy who's going to live out his life while Ichigo does a Soul Reaper task. He'll stay in school for him, he'll stay at home, whatever. Cool, fun idea. And the introduction to the character is honestly pretty enjoyable. I think to start, Kon is an absolute menace. His like perversion and nonsense is turned up to the max. And to be honest, unlike other examples of this kind of trope in different series, Kon at no point gets toned down. He's always just a freak. But if you remember, he actually did have kind of a serious story. Not even kind of, just a serious story when he was first introduced. Obviously that was mixed in with comedy, big quotes on that, because I don't think anything he ever says or does is particularly funny. But the serious story that involves him at the beginning is kind of interesting. It's about what it even means to be alive. Like, what are mod souls? They're literally things created to serve one function, and otherwise they're just meaningless existences. Kon was like a reject mod soul that thought his life was forfeit, didn't really have a chance at life. He thought it was over at that point, but here he is getting a second chance and not really knowing what to do with it. Then he meets Ichigo and the gang and he feels comfortable at home and he's found a family. That's a really nice little story. Too bad he never develops beyond that. Instead of growing or changing as a result of this newfound family and friendship and resolve to live, he instead just stays the same as always and is a complete pervert freak for the entire series. You gotta love manga. And that is exactly what Kon does for the rest of the series. Any kind of plot involvement beyond that is non-existent. He is literally just a gag character. Why was the character wasted in this way? It's really confusing because obviously I think the cynical and logical answer to this character's inclusion is he's a mascot character. This is a guy that exists to sell merch. And back in the day, it probably worked. I don't really know. I can't really say I saw a whole lot of Kon merch throughout my life, but it definitely had a fall off. Like, I can recall, at least as a kid, I'd see like a little Kon charm on somebody's backpack. You know, somebody who watched it on Adult Swim or something, and they were like, oh, cute little bear guy. And they see the keychain at Hot Topic and they pick it up. Right on, cool. However, I think as the series progresses, the desire to want to put Kon on anything you own becomes not appealing. I don't think people want to have merch of Kon because he sucks. So why would you make the mascot character, the one to sell merch, unlikable? This is where we get into the paradox of Kon. His existence doesn't justify itself. He serves no purpose in or out of the narrative. Any moment he gets in the manga from the time of his introduction to the end is just nonsense. He's just doing some freak pervy shit or just doing some little comedy routine that isn't remotely funny in any capacity. And I think the reason that this happens is just because the story itself went in a direction that didn't need Kon. Like, basically, immediately following his introduction, he's rendered useless because, yeah, Soul Society happens and Kon is in Ichigo's body for that whole arc. We don't see that though. There's some little in-between chapter things in the volumes that touch on what he was doing during that time. And the anime, I think, has some filler revolving around him in the world of the living. But then when Ichigo comes back to the world of the living, you know, we get a little bit of Kon, but then by the time the Arrancar saga rolls around, there's literally no time for Kon anymore. We're full shonen battle manga all the time. Ichigo's always in his Soul Reaper body, nowhere near his real body, so that doesn't matter. We don't need to see Kon. Instead, what we get during like that whole saga is just like an off-screen story, which we get little touches of again in between chapters in the volume release, where he's kidnapped by the research and development department at Soul Society. And I guess this is supposed to lead into Thousand Year Blood War, but it's like, what are we doing? The payoff is not really there to warrant it. So Kon, while this ridiculously long arc is playing out, is just doing normal shit with Ichigo's body, and then he gets kidnapped. And then we have the Lost Agent arc where he's not there because he's in the research and development department at Soul Society, and nobody cares or mentions him at all during that entire arc. Because at that point, Ichigo's lost his powers. The narrative literally does not need Kon. And then Ichigo gets his powers back, and even then, there's no mention of Kon. Who cares? Not important, I guess. And he really isn't. The narrative forgot about him. It didn't actually, because we're going to get to him in a second again. But before we get to the Thousand Year Blood War nonsense, as you can see, he has no purpose. Ever. His use case was fully used up in his introductory arc, and then he just kind of persisted in the background for the rest of the series. The most content he gets is like introducing character popularity polls and crying about how he's not higher ranked and all that. He's involved in like the Bount arc and the anime to some degree, just in the sense that like the introductory part with like all the mod soul shit. I mean, he's like there. He doesn't really have a purpose per se, but he is there. And I mean, yeah, the anime does utilize him a little more than the manga, I suppose, in different filler parts, but none of it is particularly good. And I'm not talking about the anime anyways, we're talking about the manga, where straight from Kubo's pen, Kon is just nothing. So then flash forward to Thousand Year Blood War arc, where we have Kon reintroduced into the story, and he's just been turned into a complete science project by the research and development department. The reason this frustrates me so much is because of how this character was introduced to us. Yeah, I know he's this comedic mascot character for the bulk of the story, but we gotta remember his roots. This guy was traumatized by these people. At least I'm pretty sure the research and development department is who created him in the first place, and he was thrown out like garbage. He was a mistake, and he thought his life was over. But he's given the second chance of life, and what Kubo chooses to do with that life is make him into a complete joke, and then at the end, basically torture him. He's just a science experiment now. So he's basically ended up right where he started, except worse. It's actually baffling. Why did Kubo even give him a story to begin with if this is the route he was gonna go with the character? And I really don't think it was necessarily malicious. I really do think it's just the natural progression of writing this story and realizing, oh shit, I introduced this character and I literally have no need for him at all anymore. What do I do with him? So the answer is just to turn him into like purely a mascot character who basically only exists in supplementary material at that point. He's in like a lot of volumes, obviously, and like little, you know, as I keep saying, the in-between chapter illustrations and little bonus comics at the end. But in the story itself, my god, his page time is minimal. All Thousand Year Blood War gets us out of him is the buff Kon part, and I guess he, you know, saves Renji and Ichigo on the impact of falling. He negates fall damage. And that's pretty much it. Then we do see him again in the one shot very briefly, which, I mean, that is kind of nice how he's just around in the Kurosaki household. He's not stuck in the Soul Society again. He's actually reincorporated back into the world of the living. So you could say he has a happy ending. He's probably just chilling with Kazui. That's cool. And maybe Hell Arc will give us something more with Kon. I would not count on it, but you never know. There's also a small possibility that the anime version of Thousand Year Blood War that is currently airing will give us something, at least a little wrap up for Kon to get him out of the Soul Society at the very least. I would like to see him get moved out of that god-awful situation that he's been in off screen for like half or more of the series. Anytime I end up thinking about this character, I just find myself wondering, like, what was Kubo thinking? Did he end up regretting including Kon at any point of writing this story? Because if I was in his shoes, I think I definitely would. Because it's not even like I can blame Kubo completely for the treatment of the character. I can in his portrayal. I think he is portrayed to be far too unlikable, especially for a mascot character. But the one glimmer we get of likability at the beginning is just squashed. It shines through for a second and then it's just gone. Every once in a while, Kon is fine and just like a whatever throwaway little mascot character. But I think most of his page time consists of just being like a nuisance and a menace. Thousand Year Blood War, I guess, is the most comedic he's ever been. And even then it's not funny at all, especially when you consider like the actual implications of his character arc, if you can call it that. But at the end of the day, really, Kubo just took the story in a direction that didn't suit the character. And I can't blame him for not being able to figure out a way to incorporate him, because my God, I look at this story and I do not see one place you could stick Kon. Unless you add like a whole new side plot going on. Like, I mean, there was, you know, like the Urara and like Urahara shop, like the Power Rangers type thing. I forgot what that was called. I think Kon was involved in that. My memory's a little hazy on that part, but I mean, I guess you could blow that up into a whole thing like the anime did. Actually, there's a filler arc about that. But it's not necessary. That doesn't add anything to the story. You could have added maybe a more serious subplot to the Arrancar saga, where maybe some stragglers come into the world of the living and Kon would have to defend people there. I could have been something at least. I mean, Kon can fight in Ichigo's body. He does have like enhanced speed and mobility and strength. That's his whole thing. But instead, those traits and aspects of his character are just never used again, and he's thrown out like trash. It's a weird thing to have two minds about, because yeah, on one end he does suck ass, but on the other end, it's Kubo's fault. There is a good character deep down in here that could have been utilized better, but he just wasn't, and now Kon is remembered as a complete joke by everybody, and I hate that. It really sucks, and it's bothered me for so long for no reason. I just had to talk about it. This poor character, who doesn't even really deserve sympathy, but he gets it from me anyway. There's just something about him. I can't help but feel bad for him. Thanks for listening to me ramble about Kon. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts on Kon. I would love to hear anything you have to say about Kon. Let's open up the floor. Let's talk about this guy for a bit. If anybody has any other strong thoughts, or if anybody loves the character as is, please let me know. I would love to hear about it. The grand finale of Bleach Month will be next week. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a massive video, and I really hope I'm able to finish it in time. I'm a little worried, but I'll manage, I think. And also, before you leave, remember you can become a channel member at 3 tiers. You can click the join button to see what tier works best for you. You get things like emotes, early access to new videos, exclusive monthly videos, your name in the credits, and if you join at the highest tier, you'll get your name read out loud right now. Thank you to DJ Tengen, Milu Kitty, Braden Farrell, Halfpipe, Rafker, The Cosmer64, Cosmic, Key to the Skies, Iliadis, Noobs Rock, Dan, The World's Worst, Menacing Pigeon, Papa Aeon, Gaming Anime Addict, BNE, Rocket Bacon, and A The Seller. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in whatever you decide to watch next. Take it easy, guys.